an exiled sorceress on the trail of a fantastic treasure. Today on Dumpster Book Club. Today on Dumpster Book Club, we're reading Silverglass, Web of Wind by J.F. Rivkin. I'm Sean.
I'm Mimi.
And I'm Lindsey.
Today we have Lindsey, our resident barbarian expert.
Sure.
Which is not Mimi's the barbarian expert. And this book is like the clean, secret taste of ancient stone.
Oh my god.
For this one, we read 2 books, or Mimi and Lindsey read... Mimi read 2 books, Lindsey read 1.5 books, and I read 1 book.
Well, this book was a gift from our friends Nick and Emmy, but...
Friend of the show, Nick and Emmy.
Turns out it's the second book in a series, but the cover was good enough that we wanted to do it anyway, so...
It was so good, Mimi and Lindsey had to read the first book.
Yeah, glad it did.
The cover of this book, it's like a barbarian, but from a Jane Fonda workout video.
Yeah.
She's got the big hair, headband, and a very revealing leotard.
I'm glad in the book she's way buffer than this, because this is a pretty disappointing... She looks tough with her, like, chair leg. But in the book, she's way tougher, which I appreciated.
Well, I was trying to find info about the author. I actually found more... It was easier to find info about the artist of this cover, but he mostly does, like, airbrushed pinup art.
Makes sense.
Gigantic boobs. That kind of thing.
And it's a wraparound drawing.
All the way to the back cover.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what this part of the series and the illustrator is kind of known for, are these wraparound covers. I looked up a little bit, and people were really impressed by the wraparound covers, and it is a nice touch.
It's pretty good.
I think this is the scene where they spend a night in jail, basically, right?
Yeah. I was thinking it's a pretty not great scene to do, because it's such like a minor point in the book. But then everything's a minor point in the second book. And also, what else would you draw? Like thinking of the stories, especially the second book, which parts would you draw? And I guess them being in jail is good enough.
Probably should have just made the barbarian even bigger. Just fill the entire cover with
like a beautiful vineyard.
Oh, yeah.
Be a very different cover, though.
So, J.F. Rivkin is a pseudonym, and it was pretty hard to find any information, but I did find something that said it's actually 2 women who are both unidentified, but sometimes they write alone, but usually they're actually writing together. And when they appear in person at like events and stuff, they're J.F. Rivkin A and J.F. Rivkin B.
Wow.
Are they that famous where all of this is necessary?
They have another pseudonym that they also use, I think, or at least one of them uses, that's Ellen Fox with 2 X's. Apparently that's also a pseudonym with someone else named Jerry Friedman, and I'm wondering if the JF stands for Jerry Friedman, but when I looked up her works, they were all like a bunch of serious books about history and genetics, so maybe she just doesn't want that to be associated with this kind of sordid sorcery fantasy. I don't know.
I just mean, how many people do you think go to a J.F. Rivkin signing? I mean, if they're around, we should definitely get ours signed. If possible. That would be fun. But I don't imagine there would be many other people at the event.
I did see that the pairing, J.F. Rivkin, they wrote another book called Age of Dinosaurs, or maybe it's a series, Age of Dinosaurs, Tyrannosaurus Rex, which I personally am like super excited about.
Yeah.
So that might be my next read after maybe completing the rest of the series. So.
Yeah.
The whole series.
Yeah,
Wow.
I might go all the way. I'm not sure yet.
I was planning to also.
I guess I haven't read the first one, so I don't know how good it can get. Okay, so I didn't read the first book, and I think I have a lot of questions, but I may have already forgotten most of them. I'm assuming all of my questions will be answered by your guys' discussion of the plot of the first book.
We'll try.
We'll do our best.
I definitely was reading the second book in the context of thinking of like, oh no, Sean didn't read the first one. Like, oh my god, what?
Yeah, so the first book was pretty enjoyable.
Yeah.
But as soon as I started reading book 2, I realized, oh wait, book 2 is like a side quest.
While reading book 2, I could, just from the flashbacks and dreams, I could tell that book 1 was just a way better story.
Yeah, for the most part.
Okay, so book 1, Silverglass, starts with basically our 2 characters getting introduced at the Lame Fox Tavern. Corson is the name of the barbarian hero, and she's been hired by the 2 wealthiest families to assassinate like a sorceress who's been causing trouble for them. And she's doing like a double deal where she's trying to, collect on this bounty from both sides.
Corson isn't quite a barbarian, though. Nick describes her like as barbarous and stuff, but she was in the military and has like, she doesn't fight with wanton rage or anything. She's pretty disciplined and has a lot of training. She's just an oversized woman. Is really what it is. And she has some of the Conan sense of humor and style.
She's very roguelike also.
It's kind of a rogue barb fighter combo.
She does have a military background, but I think it comes up a few times that she's kind of over being in the military because I think she didn't really like that kind of discipline, so...
Yeah, the term barbarian is definitely thrown around a few times, but it's definitely more in a derogatory / joking way, and mostly from Nictasia.
So while she's at this tavern, there's kind of like there's a bard playing at the tavern, some harp music or something, and who's then pickpocketing and starts like a bar fight and picks Corson to defend her for some reason. And Corson does get into this fight just to fight and ends up following this bard like musician outside into
her house / apartment. This happens like really fast too, which is basically like the tone for like most of the action in this book. It starts, it happens, and then they're there. And
the second book too.
Yeah.
Is just
It's definitely
very
what
fast.
they do. Yeah.
Not in like a good way. Like in a poorly edited movie way. Like a samurai cop way where it just like bam, it's over and we're somewhere else or something else is happening.
Yeah.
Well, the pacing in book 1 is a lot better than book 2, for sure.
I hope so.
Yeah, so turns out the harpist pickpocket is actually the target that she was hired to assassinate, and Nictasia, that's her.
Interesting. I wouldn't think Nictasia to be a pickpocket based on the second book.
I don't think she was.
She was in disguise as a pickpocket. Yeah. The person who got into the bar fight was in her employ, and it was all like a ruse to pick the strongest fighter from this shady bar to hire her to be a bodyguard.
Turns out to be Corson.
Oh my god.
Very, very intricately planned.
Was this plot explained?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
actually,
so she is a member of one of these wealthy, powerful families, but everyone hates her. So she has a ton of money, but can't be out in the open. So she hires Corson because she can pay more.
Corson pretty quickly agrees to go with her. They're trying to get out of the city because it's not safe for her there.
This also kind of sets up the main story arc, which is that Nictasia is trying to get out of her home city across the ocean to meet up with her magician lover.
Which one is this Ben?
Yeah, this is Ben.
It's one of his
Because there were like
names.
a few
He has like 4 names.
He has a lot of names.
like everyone does in this book.
and it's
Because there were
super
also-
confusing.
Ben for short.
There's also like her cousin.
Oh no, this is way before that.
Yeah.
Okay.
But, I mean, yeah. On the way out of the city, it's very Dungeons and Dragons, this whole book, including, like, how they meet at a tavern. They have, like, the class skills that they've picked, and kind of the whole book felt like a little bit like reading someone's Dungeons and Dragons game. Like, they wrote it down in a story.
Second book for sure, too.
There's, like, random encounters, like, oh, there's bandits, and they have to fight the bandits, or, like,
Get stopped by the town guard.
yeah, they have to bluff their way out of the town guard, and it's like one encounter after another. But Nictasia takes a lot of baths.
Oh, yeah.
She loves bathing.
She loves bathing. That is like the most important thing.
Did you have anything you wanted to add about?
Oh, about baths?
Yeah.
No, just that she loves them. I don't know. It's mentioned like often and often in the same wording. I should have written it down. But it's like they use the same set of words over and over again to be like, she's ready to take a bath now. Like she's like, all right.
Oh, yeah, when
Yeah.
she gets home from a tired day and all she wants
It's
is a bath.
there's
Or...
nothing better than a bath.
Yeah.
After this.
That happens a few times.
That
in the
happens
second
like
book.
5 or 6 times in the first book. It's like, all right, baths.
Yeah. And then there is a scene also during this sort of sequence where Nictasia basically just seduces Corson. And it came almost out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And Corson was a little bit also like kind of thrown off by it. And it was like a little bit strange. So I really thought that it was going to be like the Not World, where this is because they just had a fight. They've been separated for a little bit. Nictasia comes back, suddenly really seductive. It's like, is this really Nictasia? Is this like a spirit? Something dangerous? Nope.
Whoa.
Yeah.
So in the second book, they're very platonic. But there were like some weird things between them. But the whole time I thought they just weren't interested in each other reading the second book. And then at the very end of the second book, Nictasia kisses Corson on the nose. It's like, whoa, that's a weird thing to do to your friend.
Yeah.
And that made me think maybe in the first book, but I kept thinking, no, this author wouldn't do that.
Oh, they would. They would.
Yeah.
I feel like making them like lovers is stooping low for some reason. Puts it in like a trashier realm. I don't know if it was in the reading of it, but just reading the second book where they're platonic friends, I felt like the relationship between them was much more interesting, having them just be like good friends.
The romantic part of the relationship in the first book is never really much more than occasional sexual encounters. And then the rest of it is just like their exact same friendship from book 2.
So friends with benefits.
Yes,
kind
it
of
is
thing.
very much that
Yeah.
kind of situation.
It was a little interesting because it was also like the sex scenes aren't like in enough detail for it to be like really like a smutty book or something. It's like
It's true.
it's more that would be there for character development, but I was kind of expecting these two to have like more sexual tension built up between them before this, but it wasn't like that.
Yeah, it seems like it's there, but they don't really.
It's just there so
Care.
you can.
But then they get to the next big city, which is like a port. This is where they plan to leave from.
To get to the place where Ben is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they have to find a ship that'll smuggle them safely across the ocean. Both Corson and Nictasia have some familiarity with this city. They already have people that they kind of expect to meet. Nictasia also, anytime she goes here, goes in disguise as like a messenger boy. And so everyone knows her as this messenger boy character.
Yeah.
And she's like also like flirting with all these ladies as this messenger boy character.
Nictasia's so different from the Nictasia in the first book is a completely different character from the Nictasia in the second book.
Yeah.
In the second book, she's like a stuffy scribe healer who doesn't like fun, who doesn't like getting dirty, loves baths.
Yeah. I mean, some of that is there, But, like, there's other stuff going on to
I think at this point also she's like very excited with the prospect of like getting to her lover, and like less things have happened to her so far than have when you get to the second book. So like to me it makes sense that her personality is a little bit different now.
Yeah,
knowing
I think the climax
some of the things that she goes through
would definitely have an impact.
Okay.
So this town also has a tavern where Corson's heartthrob is. So this is Stefan, who is like a burly, hairy tavern owner.
Who's very into his tavern.
Yeah.
This is like very proud of his business.
And Corson's the one who can't commit because she's always got to be Rogan. There's like a flashback to how they kind of met and how Corson originally seduced him that I thought was really funny. Because she's like drinking at the tavern, kind of causing a ruckus, just being like a nuisance. And so Stefan tries to like throw her out, and she like gets up and she yells, "I think you're beautiful!" and as she's punching him. And he's like kind of confused, but he tries to punch her back, and as he's like punching her, she like just puts her hand under his shirt and starts like touching his body. And he's like too freaked out, and he just like leaves. He just like goes to his room. And she just
feels a little bit like sexual harassment.
yeah. So she follows him back to his room.
It definitely feels like sexual harassment.
And then they bone.
Yeah. And everyone hears it.
Yeah. It's very loud.
Everyone.
They're so large. They're
Yeah.
both such large people.
Yeah. But in the first book, as they're on their way there and kind of like leaving from there, like anytime Corson is talking about Stefan, it's kind of like the same tone that like you imagine that she would, you know, write his name in her diary and draw hearts around it, that kind of thing.
So Corson can't resist a fair or a flea market. She's like super into buying things, looking at beautiful things, and she just got paid for Mictasia, so she's like ready to go. This is where she picks up her fancy mirror, which is the Silverglass.
Yeah. That's where the name of the book comes from.
She's super into trinkets.
Oh,
Yes.
Trinkets are her favorite thing.
And money just like burns a hole in her pocket.
Yeah, I feel like that is very much like a character trait that I would like associate with a D&D character.
Yes.
There's like I mean, everyone has these traits in this book, but like that one especially. It's like, build a cool character. You're like,
Yep. There's another encounter with one of the bad guys. So Mictasia was supposed to marry her cousin, and this was part of why she's running away, and part of why everyone hates her, but he captures her. There's like a torture scene, kind of.
Who tortures who?
The cousin is like...
he's Lord Theron.
Torture her into marrying him?
No, I think he was just gonna kill her for revenge or something.
And he's pretty upset about it.
And I think he wanted... Oh, you know what? He wanted information about where to find Corson because Corson killed all his guys, so...
Right. There's some casualties as they're escaping the first
Corson,
city.
for a good guy, Corson's does not give a shit about just killing people.
No.
She will kill you when you're down. She'll kill you when you're sleeping. She doesn't care.
I'm chaotic neutral! So this was kind of where magic started coming up a little bit more. Because while she's like tied up, Mictasia basically is like casting a spell to like kill herself so that she can't reveal any information. But Corson shows up and saves her.
How does Corson know?
I think she was supposed to meet her there at this inn that she's staying in, which, like, no one else is supposed to know about. Or she knew she was staying there, and she's going to get her because Stefan has arranged passage for the two of them on a friend of his boat, a smuggler who is a friend of his, her boat. So she's going to get her.
Yeah, the place that he's holding her is actually a property that she owns.
Oh, yeah.
It's just like an abandoned house on the coast.
Yes.
that has like a secret cove access to
He
the
takes
ocean.
her. No, they're not even in the inn because she went to the house after she went to the inn. She went to the inn to make people think she was staying at the inn, but she was actually staying at the secret house that she lived in, and that's where he found her. I think. No,
Are you sure?
I'm not sure.
No.
But he didn't take
So
her to
many
the house.
complicated
She went to the
schemes.
house because she makes a huge deal when she's
henchman
going in the
brought-
inn so that
His
people
henchman
know.
brought her there.
That's
right?
true. Okay.
Yeah.
Ah,
So, Corson kills all the henchmen. She kills this villain, rescues Nictasia, and they get on the boat.
passage is rough.
Yeah. Nictasia's like seasick the whole time. The boat captain, one of Stefan's like other love interests, so
Oh, is it?
There's some tension.
Well, the D lady.
Destiver.
yeah.
Destiver. Who, there's another D character named Diaster in the second book, and they were the same person. I was like, wait, why is this lady here, and why is Corson cool with her all of a sudden?
They also have sex again on the boat.
Oh.
Jeez Louise.
Yeah.
And this is where they start doing the mirror spell also, which is why the mirror is so important, is Corson starts like poking around in Nictasia's spell books. There's a spell to like see, you can like spy on stuff in the mirror. Then Nictasia's trying to explain how it's like dangerous because what you're seeing, you don't know if it's real or if it's something in your head or if it's the future or the past. And also, whenever you cast a spell, there's a cost to it. So if you're spying on your lover, the cost of that might be that you don't ever get to be with them or something like that. But you don't know what the cost is going to be unless you're like really powerful magician, sorcerer, whatever.
Corson like understands that to a point, but she's also like, yeah, I don't know about all this magic.
Yeah.
But
An explanation of
Maybe it
magic
doesn't
would
matter.
have helped the second book too, because it just seemed like whatever the fuck.
Yeah. In book one, I was actually thinking that you might kind of like the system of magic, but then when I got to book two, I was like, oh, you're not going to get any of that. Because while they're kind of at the coast, that's where also this idea comes up where there's like certain places that have magical power. Being by the ocean, you can draw on that power while you're there. There's also a cost to using a power that is, doesn't belong to you. So it's dangerous.
Yeah, I was thinking that the magic reminded me kind of the Earthsea books, especially the whole cost and like locations and like using other people's stuff. Earthsea had a different like way you do it, but the hesitation to use it because there's a cost and you don't know the effects.
Of what will happen when you do it.
Definitely.
And then sort of dangerous locations and like the idea of you seeing something but you're not sure what you're actually seeing is also in the Earthsea books. And just the amount of it, like there are people who are very powerful but they try to use it as little as possible, and usually the magic only comes up at the end and stuff. It reminded me a lot of the Earthsea trilogy, or
Yeah, that was
five-tology it is.
definitely better done in book one.
But even in book two, I got a sense of, I didn't like the way it was used, but the amount of it and like the way it was like treated, I liked because it reminded me of Earthsea.
Yeah. And in book one, after they get off the boat, there's another town. There's more like town encounters, more shopping. They like restock. Then they basically have one more forest to get to where Ben is. And this forest, he basically lives in the forest, and it's like an enchanted forest, and people do not go through it unless they have to, but sometimes merchants will try to like take it as a shortcut. So they find a caravan and they're going to go through this forest. A lot of spooky stuff happens where people disappear in the night while they're on the trail because things in the forest like lure you off the path.
if you go off the path, you're screwed.
You're pretty much done.
It's over.
And
It's
so
like in The Hobbit.
Yeah, similar.
What is it called? Mirkwood.
yep.
It's like Mirkwood.
Yeah.
Similar, except I think even worse things happen.
Even worse than Merkle.
Well, and then so once someone disappears, they can kind of like come back and appear at the edge of the path, try to convince more people to like, come join us. Not really them. They're like ghouls or like ghosts or spirits or something.
Like the marshes in Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Don't they look pretty gross too? Or like they can? Because I thought there was that one guy that like terrified that lady so much because he looked so gross, but he was her like lover maybe?
Yeah. I think it was just that it was like weird.
It was super weird that he was back.
It was like very eerie tone to this part of the book.
I misinterpreted that. It was pretty weird. Yeah, pretty weird in this forest.
This is also where Nictasia, and why the reason that Ben is out here is because if you are part of the forest and living in the forest, it's kind of this unlimited source of power. And she kind of does her first exploration out into the forest alone. There's kind of a cool little spell where she basically trades daggers with Corson and promises to bring it back. That promise like binds her to come back. But when she's out in the forest, it's like the magic kind of is almost too powerful for her and keeps her there. But she finds the guy that disappeared and like who's clearly dead, but his ghost is just bothering them on the rest of the journey.
Like Ben's proximity to this forest is like the reason why he lives out there and like why he's able to control the land that he controls.
Yeah. So then there was another bad guy, sort of.
Who's the first bad guy?
Like her family and like the
Rahashtalids.
Yeah. So there's like another really powerful sorcerer who I think was named Castanid, who previously lived in this castle, but Ben like kicked him out and took over his castle. So while they're going there, Castanid like shows up and gives them like a ominous warning, and they kind of ignore it. Like, no, you got kicked out. It's our castle now. We're gonna go there. They make it to this castle, and the castle was also very eerie and like dreamlike. It felt like the whole time, where Nictasia goes to meet Ben, but then Corson is there and like they won't let her see her. The servants and stuff are like kind of creepy and keep them separated. And
yeah, Nictasia no longer seems like the person that Corson knows. She seems pretty enchanted, or by Ben, kind of like she's not saying the same things and acting pretty weird.
And then Corson, I think, meets up with Castanid, and there's like a final wizard battle. Well, Corson like knocks Nictasia out, and like they and then all four of them meet up: Ben, Nictasia, Castanid, and Corson. And I don't know. This okay.
It's really confusing. I'm reading what you wrote on, and I'm like, oh, right, okay, I guess that's
what does a
happened.
wizard battle look like in this universe?
It was kind of like they're just facing off. They know that Ben is like way more powerful than any of them, but he's just gonna leave. He just wants to take Nictasia. But then Corson figures out that she's wearing like a golden wedding band. And so all the time that they spent earlier like talking about jewelry and like fashion shopping and stuff, Corson looks really good in gold, and that's why she wears gold earrings. And gold isn't that good looking on Nictasia. She only wears like silver jewelry. Like all of that comes back. Like all this fashion sense ends up saving the day, because Corson like sees that the ring on her finger and pulls it off. And I think that kind of frees Nictasia a little bit from this like enchantment.
Did Ben enchant her or Castanid enchant her?
Ben.
Okay, so he's like a bad guy also.
Kind of. Yes.
Power is a little too much for him.
Yeah.
The power.
Yeah.
Too much.
Yes. Classic power trope.
Yeah, where like he kind of became the forest, or like the forest like took over his mind kind of. So then he kind of turns his power on Corson and almost kills her, but Nictasia goes to like protect Corson with Castanid's help, and Ben thinks that she's like betraying him. And then it's not clear whether it's Castanid that kills him or he's just like so heartbroken that he kills himself. But he does the like Obi-Wan Kenobi thing where he just like vanishes and all that's left is his cloak. And that's the final confrontation.
Speaking of jewelry, we missed a pretty important part about jewelry.
The earrings?
Yeah! That's like a huge... Well, I don't know if it's huge, but I feel like it kind of develops Corson and Nictasia's relationship a little bit more. So, a long time ago, Corson had some gold earrings that she won from some sort of battle or treasure. For some reason, she has these gold earrings that she really likes, and it's like a huge deal that...
Someone gave them to her,
Someone
right?
gave them to her.
While she was in the army?
Yes, that's probably what happened. It's a huge deal that, like, she really likes gold. Nictasia's like, no, only silver, no gold. So they are robbed when they're leaving the first city, and they take Corson's earrings, which is like the worst part of being robbed for
Is
her.
that Newt?
No.
Was he part of that group of bandits?
Yes, that was Newt.
Okay.
Yes.
But there was like a ton of them. Because like Corson probably could have killed any 10 of them, but there was like too many, so...
Yeah. So they take her golden earrings, and that's very sad for her. She's pretty, well, I don't think she thinks she's sad. She's just
deeply humiliated.
deeply humiliated, yeah. And so when Nictasia gets to the second city, Chiastlam, perhaps.
Yes.
She like goes through some of her possessions that she has stashed there, and in it are a pair of golden earrings, which she thinks, oh, perfect, I'll give these to Corson to replace her other gold earrings. I can't wear them because they're not silver. So she gives these earrings to Corson. Turns out that they're poisoned. She didn't know. Someone put poison on them to kill her if she were to wear them. They're poisoned. And she gives them to Corson, and then they have an argument and, like, don't talk for a long time, and Corson storms away, and, like, so...
Yes.
But then somehow Nictasia finds out that she's, like, really sick. She's like, oh, no, the earrings, they're poisoned. So she goes on a quest to find Corson, who's, like, stashed away in this random little inn, finally finds her, takes the earrings out, and then, like, nurses her back to health with the combination of magic and, traditional medicine, maybe.
Yeah.
But they have, like, a lot of moments then, I think. It, like, kind of makes more sense that they would, like, then stick together after that, because they kind of have both saved each other.
Yeah.
Ish. More or less.
The healing scene there, I think, was kind of interesting also, where, like, Corson is, like, trapped kind of in her head also, like, just on, like, a weird beach thing, and think there's, like, something tempting her, like death would, and then Nictasia has to, like, visit this vision as someone and kind of convince her to come back, and, it's kind of cool. I don't know.
Poison earrings, though.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? That was interesting to me. But...
Feel like in the second book there were a lot of flashbacks and dreams to all of the intrigue and family things going on with Nictasia.
Yeah.
Were those in the first book and you just went over them because they're so tedious?
Yes.
Okay. Because they were like the dreams were miserable. And I could imagine if you had read those parts in the first book, they would be even worse in the second book.
She has some similar dreams to that in the first book, I think, where she's going back, but they're not as, like, long or detailed.
Maybe they were easier to read in book 2 because you kind of already know the situation. But yeah, it's just those two wealthy families are...
Oh, I don't want to know.
Oh, okay.
That part sucked.
So there was something I wanted to point out. Which is that, so Nictasia's family, they're like the Edinaris or something like that. I don't know how to say it. But their house has like a motto, which is an Edinaris always pays her debts. And I don't know much about Game of Thrones, but I know that a Lannister always pays his debts is their unofficial house motto. And the first Game of Thrones came out in 1996. This came out in 1986. Do you think George R. Martin might
Maybe he's got a signed copy of The Web of Wind?
Huge Silverglass fan.
So I guess the Silverglass is kind of a theme that carries on in the second one, is like them, because Corson looks in the pool to check up on Stefan.
Yeah.
So that's the carrying. It doesn't seem worthy of the title, though. It should be like wizard fight or something.
I think the spell kind of came up a few times, but it was like a little...
Yeah, it's just not the plot or anything.
Yeah. Well, same with Web of Wind, right?
Yes, there just happens to be some webs and spider motifs, and then a...
Or it's a sail that, catches
and there's
the
like
wind.
the web that makes sound when air goes through it.
Wind fountain.
Wind fountain. Talk about the second book.
Yeah.
Silverglass Web of Wind.
Yeah.
Reading this, not having read the first book, it wasn't so bad because they just meet in a tavern.
Yeah.
And it's nothing really happens in this book. It's just two friends, not lovers, just hanging out being friends. And the book is best like when their friendship shines, like when like them with their witty banter.
Yeah.
That's when the book is at its best. When either one of them is alone, not as good. Especially if Nick Tasia's alone, you're just in for a rough read until Corson comes back.
I kind of feel the same thing about Corson. I was really annoyed with Corson in the second book because everything that I disliked about her in the first book just got so much worse in the second book. It's
yes.
Okay.
But at least if Corson was a star, some action would
Might
probably happen.
Yeah.
Might happen.
Or-
But yeah, listening to her whine about various love problems
Yeah.
was pretty dumb.
Yeah, the book picks up immediately where the last one left off. So Nictasia is still like moping over like her big love interest dying and it being mostly her fault, and realizing that maybe he loved magic more than he loved her. And I felt like book 2 really relied on book 1 providing a foundation for what like the baseline of these characters is.
They seemed much happier, my read. They just seemed like good, like just a party of murder hobos just having a good time.
Yeah. Especially after book 1, which had like a pretty big story arc with like a clear goal and villains. Even though they kind of shifted around, it was like there were still like big threats the whole time. And then we go right into Web of Wind where it's like, well, what do you want to do now?
Everything they do is, well, what do you got better to do? Like, oh, I don't want to go to the fair. Well, what are you going to do? Just mope right here? Okay, I'll go to the fair. Why don't we go find the treasure? Sure, we're not doing anything else. Why don't we hang out with these people and pick grapes for 100 pages? Sure.
Yeah, this has felt like a side quest. This is like, it's not the main storyline.
Yeah.
We're just gonna do this other stuff that's gonna take up some
You
time.
get tired of playing the main quest and you go farm some money and some items for a while.
It's like they just took a little vacation to wine country, and
Which is not too different from some of our Dungeons and Dragons games.
The first one doesn't sound anything like a game that we would play. This second one is like, hey, there's some treasure. Oh, okay, that sounds good.
Yeah, we'll check that out.
just learn the life story of all these people in this
just-
family in this house. Sounds good.
So it starts with Nick Tasia is sad, so they decide to go to the fair to possibly cheer her up. And at the fair, they see Newt, who stole Corson's earrings, and Corson beats him up, and then the cops put them in jail. That's how the book starts. Newt happens to have a little paper with a bunch of poems on it that are maybe a treasure map.
They're riddles.
They're riddles. Right, not poems. And the most frustrating part is you don't get to read all the riddles or any of the songs or anything on it until they've already solved the thing.
Wait, don't they have the whole thing in its entirety?
No. They read 2 or 3 at the beginning to explain that they're riddles, and for Corson to be like, oh, riddles are hard, it's dumb for book people. But every time they get to a point, then they're like, oh, it's like this part in our map.
Yeah.
And then they read it, and it's not one of the ones in the beginning.
Yep.
Wow, I really thought that there was like several pages long of just the riddles.
No.
Because I remember reading all of them and
Might
then...
have been a song. There were like
There was a
multiple
song.
songs that were like 6 pages long.
There were some songs, and they did read a few of the riddles.
Okay.
and some other part, like the list of names and stuff. I think they should have written the whole thing out so while you're reading it, you could say, oh, I remember it from the riddle, instead of having the characters just dick around and then some idiot finally realizes it's from the thing.
Yeah.
I agree. I think that's a different kind of book, though. That's not these books. That would be better.
And
I'm just flying ahead here because nothing happens.
Okay. Well, so they do decide to investigate the riddles
Because they're not doing anything else.
And the riddles, the family that had this, like, has something to do with the Edenaris on this side of the ocean.
That's
like,
Nictasia's family.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Her, like, distant cousins.
distant relatives of Nictasia, but like an offshoot of the family that has a winery.
She doesn't know that, though.
No, they do. Because Corson knows it.
They find, yeah, but Nictasia doesn't know that. She finds out.
Oh, but Corson knows it because she's a well-traveled person.
She has the local knowledge.
Yes.
Lore.
Put a lot of ranks into local knowledge.
Yeah.
What's interesting is Newt just disappears. One page he's there, and the next he's gone. And they don't say anything about it. They just
leave
keep
him
going.
in a stable.
But they don't say that they left him at the stable. That's the last time you hear from him.
That's true.
He didn't come, but you don't know. He could have just been walking along next to them the whole time. You wouldn't have known. Because I thought he was with them until they got to the ruins. And then they're only talking about them trying to find Silverglass. I go, what about that guy you had with you with the treasure map? They didn't say, like, oh, he went off on his own, or, oh, like, hey, don't steal from us again, or, you know, if we ever see you again, we'll beat you up, or the cops won't be able to save you next time.
He was dead weight. He was slowing them down because he was
Yeah.
too injured. I think
They could have said that too.
I thought they left him at the jail, but maybe...
No.
No, Nictasia tries to heal him, and they take him
right.
with them to this hay barn.
That's right. All right.
Just ditch him there.
So on their way to this grape land, to the wine Edenaris people, they stop at these haunted ruins,
And Corson accidentally does the spell on a fountain because it's magical haunted ruins. And then it's another horrible dream sequence. And then they're randomly attacked by 3 swordsmen.
It's very random.
They just walk out of the trees and start hitting them with
They
swords.
say, hello, strangers. And they're like, hi. And they're like, ah.
And they beat them back, and then they walk back into the trees, and Corson chases them and can't find them. And then that's just not mentioned again
Just
until
leave.
like the end of the book.
I totally forgot that, but
Corson
I
walks
believe
back
it.
in, and it's like, oh no, she's fighting them. Oh, I hope she's okay. And then she just wanders back out with a bunch of fruit. She's like, hey, got breakfast. Throws Nictasia a peach.
It's so just, here's a thing,
okay.
this happens, and this happens.
That's like the dungeon master has to make something happen, so you just roll for the random encounter
Yeah.
table because
3 swordsmen attack.
And after you search for fruit.
So that's about page 50. They get to the Edenaris, which is a big vineyard of all these people who look kind of similar to Nictasia, and there's you get there at page 50. And then from 50 to page 150, nothing, the plot does not move forward. It's all character building for all these new characters that we're just introduced to, and long explanations of how making wine works.
Yep.
And it just stops. They you get introduced to every single one of them. They all have names that you cannot remember. There's some romantic situations where Corson has sex with one of the people
Yep.
that she likes, and Nictasia has sex with the sister of that person, who is her cousin, who looks so much like her that everyone mistakes the two of them. Which is really weird to me.
Yeah.
I guess having sex with cousins is normal in this universe, but also having sex with someone who looks almost exactly like you is really weird.
So, I mean, it was super weird, but then I was thinking about it. It's like, okay, she was about to marry, like she had an arranged marriage with her direct cousin, like first cousins. These people like branched off pretty far back in their family history. And so it's like not that weird for that reason.
I would still feel weird.
But she looks almost identical other than being more tan from being like working in a
She has
vineyard.
more muscles.
Yeah.
Muscly version.
But it's like Nictasia is mirror biased from Silver Metal Lover.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a little bit weird, but
I mean, it's cool that it's such a sex positive world where everyone's just boning everyone and it's no one worries about it. But I don't know. My scruples come in.
It's like, if you think it's weird that she looks exactly like her but has minor differences, the next morning she gets up and cuts her hair to look exactly like Nictasia's.
Yeah, that's a weird thing to do
So,
after you have sex with someone.
I don't know.
What else happens? They go have a pool party.
yeah.
They go swimming. We find out Corson's afraid of water and swimming.
That I felt like was super weird because like they traveled across the ocean. Like
Yeah.
she's familiar with the water. She's been on boats before.
It seems silly that she wouldn't be able to swim.
Yeah.
Having been a soldier and fought in wars and traveled the world and stuff.
Yeah. So
She
that
has too much armor.
not based on this cover.
It's true.
She's basically wearing a swimsuit on
Yeah.
the cover.
True.
Like it made a little bit more sense that maybe Nictasia wouldn't have learned how to swim, but
Yeah, there's a lot in this book where Corson is sort of the fish out of water.
And I feel like it should have been Nictasia who's the fish out of water because she's a wealthy sorceress who just reads books all the time and she's in a outdoorsy.
yeah.
She does mention that a few times. She's like really shocked that they don't have a very good library at their house. She's like, oh my god.
And she's
This
like,
library is only one whole room.
Yeah.
How am I going to survive?
yeah. I mean, she does have issues like fitting in, but she's just like always able to just be smart enough to do what they do and kind of follow along to fit in. So it like doesn't end up causing any problems for her to be totally out of her element.
And then they also have a lot of dream visions.
And stuff. That's all the things that happen in this 100 pages. And then on page 150,
is
book
where I
starts.
didn't-
Picks up again.
It's where I didn't make it. Nope. I'm stuck in the grapes.
You didn't
I'm
get
just like
make it?
in a mush pile of grapes. I'm drowning a little bit.
Did you at least make it through the crush?
No.
Oh, God.
I didn't. I just heard a lot about it, how it was like really exciting.
Yeah.
Was it really exciting?
No, it was boring.
Okay.
They have to like pick grapes. Nictasia gets heat stroke. Oh, she gets her first sunburn.
Oh.
Yeah, you could even say that the book doesn't even start till page 50 because really the beginning was introduction and they show them the riddles. And then we just dump that. And then it's grapes. The last 50 pages could have just been the book.
I missed it.
You
I
missed
missed
the
the
book.
whole book.
Where they figure out enough of the riddles based on some Simvelen ruins, which Simvelens are the people that who wrote the riddles. They figure out enough of them to find a cave.
There's a lot of red herrings, like false positives, like the
There's
riddles.
so many. And it's, if we had read the riddle ourselves, those red herrings would be better because then we could be tricked by them and get excited, or there could be some tension, but that's not what happens. And the whole cave sequence is another one of those build up, like, oh, some magic could happen, there could be ghosts, what's going on? And then it just turns out there are slavers living in the caves who have been kidnapping people and selling them into slavery, which is the weird disappearances,
The weird
They knew that,
disappearances.
though.
the weird sounds.
They knew.
Screams
Oh, okay.
and,
That,
like-
like geographically, that's where they're living.
Yeah,
I see.
they're under the grape place in caves.
There's like a
Okay.
cave
The
maze.
All right.
Yeah, there's a labyrinth.
Oh, because there's all those maze paintings in
Right.
the house. Okay. 'Cause there's a maze underneath. Got it.
Yeah, there's a bunch of like little clue things that I'm just skipping because they're like they don't lead to anything.
Except the key. Gotta get the key.
Yeah, they find the key in a fountain that is a web of wind because wind goes through it and makes sound, and it looks kind of like a web. And they find a key. And
Where's the key?
it's in a fountain.
So
Oh, inside the fountain.
you
Yes.
know how the fountain was like, it had like flowers and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Eventually they figure out that from a kid's perspective, after talking to a child, that if you get underneath and look up at it, there's like details on the underside of everything. And one of the flowers has a stamen that's actually the key.
Oh, and that's like, okay, Nictasia like puts her fingers in the flowers at the very beginning, like way before this happens. She's like, oh yeah, it's even like a real flower. And then someone's like, when they figure out that at that point, when they think that the riddles are just fake, they're like, these are just children's riddles. But they actually are.
Yeah.
So the whole Cymvelin riddle and this treasure, it was a children's game that the
Okay.
Cymvelin set up. And
right.
the treasure was a treasure for children.
Okay.
And it was all an adventure for children to go on. And so the special cave that they found in the Maze of Caves leads them back to the haunted ruins that they spent the night in way back in the beginning of the book. And then they search all that, and there was like a sneaky ghost, and I just realized that was Newt. Because remember, they see a ghost and they chase it around, they never find it, and then they're like, oh, I couldn't find that. Who was it? I don't know. Let's just keep going.
It was Newt.
Yeah, but they never say that was Newt. That was you gotta be paying attention, figure these things out. Anyway, and then they find out finally that the well in the ruins is not a well, and it leads to a giant cave. And they had brought one of the captured slaves with them because he was also a treasure hunter and claims to be one of the children of the Cymvelins.
The Cymvelins owned part of that vineyard before the Edenaris, but they were burned to death by the village for being
there's some
spooky.
dark history about the Cymvelins. And they go through the cave, and then they gotta squeeze through a really tight cave, and Corson has fear of tight spaces.
And she's a big lady, so
What is that called? Claustrophobia. She has claustrophobia, so they have to crawl on their bellies through this really tight cave, and it's not tense. And then they find a door that the key would go to, but Corson had forgotten it. So they have to go back.
Okay.
They gotta backtrack through caves.
Is there any witty banter involved in that at least? Or is it
Corson
just
feels
like,
bad, and the other guy's suit calls them idiots and goes ahead of them.
Okay.
And on the door there's a poem a riddle that could mean death or treasure. And they get back, and the other guy they brought with them has locked them in the cave, and he's gonna let them starve to death and then go get the treasure himself. And then Newt just appears again, just walks back into the book and pushes him off a cliff, and he dies. And then Newt saves them, and there's some banter between Newt and Corson again.
Good.
And then
they inform the Edenaris, they get their key, and they go back to open this door.
and they bring some of the Edenaris with them to help because they think there's gonna be a bunch of gold. But then it's books.
Oh,
It's a library.
It's
nice.
a big library, which is really funny because about halfway through the grape part, when they're looking around for the treasure, Corson's like, all these riddles and garbage, this treasure's probably books or something that's gonna enlighten our minds because it lasts forever. And then Corson was right.
wow.
So that's why it was for children, because once they were able to find the library on their own, they were ready to start their training.
Wow.
There's also just a random labyrinth behind the library for it was some sort of
trip
training, training thing for the kids. They're supposed to be able to get through the labyrinth or something.
And that would be like the way for adults to get into the library normally, so they don't have to like shimmy through a bunch of tight spaces.
Yeah.
And
But so if you were a kid that didn't like riddles, you just never get past first grade or something.
That would be
in this
me in
analogy.
this
Yeah.
world.
I hate riddles.
She's not cut out to be a
That
scholar.
makes sense
Yeah.
that is the thing that happens because there's so much focus on the kids. There's like a bunch of kids in this vineyard. They mention it like multiple times.
Yeah.
Without that being like the main focus of everything. It's just like, okay, kids everywhere. Crawling with kids.
So then,
This could have been the end.
No, are we at the end? Nope.
it turns out there's a book missing from the library.
Yeah, they're
And it's a book about summoning demons. And it's gonna be the night of the transition from like harvest time to winter, so magic's super strong now to summon demons. So they gotta go hunt for the book and find the people who stole the book, because they're gonna summon a demon to kill everybody. And they find this lady Jocelys, or Joey Celis, or Joey Cleese.
she was like friends with the guy that betrayed them.
She was another one of the children of the Sim villains, and she poisons them with
Yep.
some drinks. There's this funny shop. I don't know if this is like a real thing, but you go into the shop and you're like, I would like a fancy drink, please, and they brew the fancy drink for you after you ask for it, and then they give it to you. Which
A dram shop.
yeah, is that a real thing?
It's a real word.
Yeah, I don't know.
I've only heard it in reference to like a bar these days, but like I think that it's an
It
old
seemed-
thing.
It seemed like a kind of like a combination between like a bar and like a cafe where you would get like coffee or something. Because what does Corson order? So it was something.
It doesn't say. There's
something
like,
weird.
I'll have whatever you're making right now. And then she's like, well, I was making poison. Here you go.
Who is in the full party of people searching for this book?
Just Corson and Nictasia.
Oh, okay.
They did not bring anyone with them because they didn't want to make everyone feel sad before their harvest party.
Oh yeah.
Which I feel like you should
Okay.
warn everyone instead of...
I think Nictasia wanted to like investigate before alarming anyone. Because it wasn't clear if the book was stolen, even though it was pretty clear that it was stolen.
They get knocked out and they're taken back to the library, but this time they're in the labyrinth and it's dark and they got to find their way through the labyrinth.
Oh boy.
And they do. And they find a demon cult summoning a demon. And Corson is like, okay, Nictasia, you go warn everyone. I'm just going to kill all these people. And Nictasia's really worried that she's not going to be able to do it. But Nictasia Corson comes right behind her. He's like, oh yeah, they're all like 80-year-old dudes. I killed them all very easily.
It's really funny because right before that, like, yeah, Nictasia's like running away and like kind of thinking about Corson like sacrificing herself to like, you know, stay behind. And,
She's
like,
like a few steps behind her on the stairs.
and then Nictasia like realizes she's not gonna make it in time to like call for help, so she just goes to that old bell tower and rings the bell to like call for help, but that collapses the whole cave system.
The bell is so heavy that it collapses the tower, which then collapses the cave, which definitely kills any of the old people that Corson didn't kill. And then, is this the end of the book? Nope. There's more. The old people successfully summoned the demon, but because Nictasia killed them, she paid the price, so she's in control of the demon. And a demon is actually just a genie who grants wishes.
Okay.
That's not what it's supposed to be.
But that's how it works. You summon an otherworldly creature, and then it says, I'll do your bidding, and you get an amount of wishes until it's satisfied, or you can wish that it's free, and it goes away to live its life, and it's free from having to grant wishes anymore.
Does she do that?
She does.
Oh.
But first she asks to see the future of her city, and she sees it in flames. The seduction of power is very great, and she can't trust herself not to use the demon for her own ends to save the city or kill people or something.
And then she tells it to like take a form that she recognizes, and it shows up as Ben and like comes up and is like talking in his voice.
Yeah, so not knowing that Ben was seduced by power and not knowing that power can seduce you made it a little bit less of like a thing to me. It's like, oh, is just Nictasia like really power hungry, or and so Nictasia decides to leave it up to Vaughn, which is God, and just turn off her brain and just say the first thing that comes out her mouth, which is to free the demon. And I feel like this is a terrible way to end a story, because you take away all the agency of Nictasia. Like, it should have been her overcoming the desire for power. That's how you tell the story.
Well, I mean, she kind of did, like, because she had the option to, like, say, yes, I do want all this power, and I am going to go back and save my city, and I am going to bring my dead lover back, and...
Yes, but she took the easy way out instead of just doing it herself.
Well, what I thought was really funny about this ending, during that 100 pages where they're just goofing around with this family, and Corson is, like, sleeping with that guy, keeps coming back to this idea of, like, action over words, like, because he's trying to, like, flirt with her, and she's like, basically, shut up, let's have sex. Nictasia's thinking at the end where she's like, yeah, maybe Corson is right, that sometimes you need action over words. That was Corson's sex motto, saves the day.
But it's God that saves the day. God speaks through her. It's like building up the religion and her religious thing in the story, which isn't a part of it. And the whole book has been the character of Nictasia and the character of Corson, like, experience. Like, the whole book, nothing happens, but the characters develop. It's just character development. Mm-hmm. And then to take away the last real bit of character development and give it to to the religion seems like a mistake.
Sure. Yeah.
And then the book actually ends. Whew. Except, not quite. Because Corson sails away and Nictasia awkwardly kisses her on the nose. It's a weird place to kiss someone.
Do you know where she's sailing to?
Yes, back to Stefan.
Okay.
And Nictasia is staying with the Edinaries.
Okay.
And that's it. That's both books. There are 2 more books in the series. I don't think I'm going to read anymore. Especially because I would have to go back and read the first one. But you guys still think you're going to read 3 and 4?
I think I would, because I kind of feel like book 2 might be a low point. I'm hoping that 3 and 4 would be more similar to 1. If, like,
at least 4 would.
Yeah. I think there's threads that are kind of left unresolved, and I think those maybe kind of give some motivation for something to happen. And I think that, you know, as long as stuff was happening, the first book was pretty fun to read, I think.
Yeah, I agree. The first was really fun to read, and if I make it through book 2, I will probably continue on to 3 and 4. But we'll see.
The second book wasn't that bad, and my reading experience wasn't that bad. It was really boring for a good portion of it, but nothing was offensive to me. Nothing was particularly painful other than the dream sequences. For a bargain bin book, it's pretty fun.
Yeah.
But it looks like we have a ton of additional thoughts about this book. So I kind of want to start off with my first one.
Sure.
Because I think it'll be fun. I talked about the relation to Ursula Le Guin's Earthsea trilogy. There is also, I feel like what?
So that was in relation to the magic system.
The magic and like the way magic is treated, and then also that there's just a bunch of underground labyrinths.
Oh yeah, that's true. Definitely in Earthsea, I feel like the whole magic system is a lot more elegant.
Yes, Earthsea is miles better than this in every possible way. That's not it's not an opinion, that's a fact. But there were like little tidbits that reminded me of it, which
but I was gonna say, partly I kind of got the sense that the magic system in this was like overly opaque and convoluted, so that you can relate to Corson, who's like constantly annoyed by Nictasia always being kind of like a little bit of a know-it-all and always like, oh, you know, actually it works like this, or actually it works this other way, or there's all this other stuff that you don't know about because you're an uneducated barbarian. It kind of was okay because it...
Yeah. And I think the part where she summons a demon reminds me of a lot of the first A Wizard of Earthsea, where he does some magic that he shouldn't be doing, and he accidentally summons this familiar of himself that ends up being like the main
Yeah.
villain, and it's a lot of like, you don't understand what you're doing, and you're dealing with things that are beyond your control, and you accidentally summon something that shouldn't be here. And I don't know, there's a lot of content-wise callbacks to Earthsea.
Yeah.
There are a lot of parts that reminded me of our long experience of reading Terry Goodkind. Which, if you don't know, he wrote a series called The Sword of Truth, which starts out pretty good and dives down into some of the worst reading you could possibly do in your life. But one thing that happens at least 100 times in all of his books is someone will give a monologue where they explain something. And unfortunately, everyone in Goodkind's books are super smart, the best guys. They're all the best. But so in order for one to monologue explaining something, everyone else has to become an idiot and be like, "Oh, what does that mean? Oh, I don't get it." And just everyone is just becoming smarter and dumber all the time. And it never makes any sense. And this happens a few times in here where Corson does a monologue, or Nick Tasia does a monologue, or one of the grape people does a monologue, and then everyone else is reduced to a blithering idiot. The end. That's the end of that. And then I also got reminded of Tolkien a little bit, certainly not in the scope of his stories or anything, but just the giant amount of proper nouns in these stories. Everything has got a name, and they're long names.
Yeah, there's a part where they start explaining each other's proper names, and like one person
Isn't educated, so they get it wrong.
let me see if I can find one of the proper names. I won't be able to pronounce any of the names correctly. So Nick Tasia's real name is Hlavin Nictasia V Tessalesk Ricime Astiere Wis Gwethrad Moir Bren Roshdil Aran Ednaris.
Yep.
And Dacia, who's the love interest of Nick Tasia in this story, who looks exactly like her. Mm-hmm. Her true name is Hlavin Frondacine Leclarina
V Mesthelde Jice Bren Vale Arn Ednaris.
And I think some of those are based on your mother and some are based on where you are, but it's just shoot me when this happens. But everything has a name and every location has a name. So, since you guys have read more of this than I have made a game where I'm going to read the proper names of things and you're going to tell me what they are.
Oh, no.
Oh, boy.
Okay, are you ready?
Yeah.
Graika. Spelled Graika.
Is that a food?
No.
Is it a drink?
No.
All right, Lindsay.
I have no idea what that is.
Okay. Do you want me
Sorry.
to tell you?
Yes.
It's a bird.
Aw.
It's one of the birds in one of the riddles.
Oh.
It was the answer to one of the riddles. It's a
Right.
Graika bird.
I hate riddles, as we've discussed, so...
All right, number 2. Osela. Osela.
Oh.
Is that something that happens... Oh, you wouldn't know. You didn't read it.
Yeah, it's definitely not from the first
Wait.
book.
Is that a food?
No.
A drink?
No.
A poison.
Okay.
That is the town they starred in.
Oh.
Oh.
Where the festival was?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
There's food at the festival.
There is.
You hear a lot about that.
Eventually I'm gonna get a food.
Estheron. Esthairon.
That has something to do with... Do you know?
No.
Okay.
Tell me.
I think maybe that has something to do with Ben. That's him, I think. No? No.
I don't think so.
No, sorry,
Yeah,
that's a
he
different
has-
word.
he
He's
has another-
Sheastred.
There's a lot of E things.
Say it again.
Estheron. Esthairon.
Was it a strain of grapes?
It is.
Oh my god.
1 point.
The golden grapes are Estheron grapes.
Okay.
But he never says why they're Estheron grapes. So I don't know what Asteron means, but they have some Asteron grapes.
Okay.
Zetari.
That's a food.
It's a food.
I don't remember. Is it like a kebab?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the spicy samosa kebab thing that they eat at
Yes.
the
Sounds
beginning.
pretty good.
And
The
at the
festival street food.
end. Liruvath.
Spell it.
Liruvath.
These are really hard.
I could have made this way harder just by listing the names of the people that work at the vineyard.
Yeah.
That would be the hardest thing.
Yep. Is it a book?
No.
Is it a festival?
No.
Was it a location?
It's a location.
Is it the mountains?
Yes. Well, basically.
One of the mountains.
It's the state that's next to the one they're in, where those mountains are, and where the slaves are from.
Right.
Okay.
There is a named mountain, but I didn't put it in my I think I wrote it down.
I wouldn't recognize it if you did.
The Reaper's Eye.
Oh, it's a star in the night sky. It's red. It has another name, but the farmers know it as the Reaper's Eye.
Yep.
And I think Corson knows that somehow.
She's got that folk wisdom, that's why.
You guys have 3 points, I think.
Oh, yeah, we're doing good.
Isper the Mad.
I may have been past where I made it. That one's for you, Mimi.
Is it a drink? Shoot. That one's familiar, but I can't put my finger on it.
Is he one of the old guys at the end that
No.
Corson? Oh.
Isper the Mad is an author who wrote an autobiography that Nictasia's really into. Hlann. Hlann.
I know this one.
It's at the front of everyone's name.
Wait, is that a city?
I don't know what Hlann. I was hoping you guys would tell me what Hlann means. They say it all the time in this book.
Oh,
And they say like Hlann knows or Hlann whatever.
Is it another god or religion?
oh yeah. Oh,
'Cause
wait.
we have like Vaughn
no.
and Ace and
Yeah, there's like... So
Ice.
they go over all the different religions in the first one because Nictasia does a swear using one of like the commoners' gods, and it's like a funny thing, but I don't remember Juan. I just remember Asia and
Oh, is that how you say it?
I don't
It's not
know.
Ice.
I always read as Ice. Romper.
Romper.
It's just a funny outfit men wear.
Yeah.
Okay, that was it. There's
Wow.
1.5 million more, but it's just a slice.
So I do think there was some consistency in how the words are used. Like Arn and Bren come up all the time, and like one of them must mean like from somewhere.
I think it's Bren because Corson's name is Corson Brentorisk, and we hear that that's her town. But I
Yeah.
did not realize that until the explanation of how the names were formed. I thought that Bren was just her middle name.
But I just don't care. Don't
Yeah.
give me a name that's 2 sentences long.
And I felt like the problem was that all the words felt the same. It wasn't like they had a different feeling based on like the region they were from, and they all felt like they came out of like a random syllable generator.
Yeah.
They were like unpronounceable and like
If you're not going to go full Tolkien and make up a language, you probably shouldn't
Yeah.
go half Tolkien.
yeah.
Yeah, it was all in the naming of things that these things appeared, and their regular speech didn't really have very many like tricks of that sort of nature. It
The
was
way
just
they
normal,
talked didn't
just
reflect that.
modern English, really.
Anyway, the influence from Tolkien pretty obvious just from these fantasy elements. And
It's
then-
probably the influence of Tolkien is because it's influenced by Dungeons and Dragons, which
Oh,
is
yeah.
influenced by Tolkien.
yeah. I think we've already talked about how much it's like just someone's Dungeons and Dragons game.
It is, but also the character Nictasia and Corson in the second book, because there's no plot, they are just murder hobos. Where they're going for treasure and killing people along the way and just living in other people's homes, going to taverns.
Yeah. And they were like that, but with like a goal in the first book. I also saw some comparisons also to Robert Howard, because I did read the full Chronicles of Conan the Barbarian.
We're kidding. Mimi is an expert on barbarians. She's read every Robert Howard Conan the Barbarian story.
I think that those were like a lot more focus on kind of the setting, and they were a lot slower, especially book 1 anyway, was like very fast paced, a lot more dialogue and character focus. But the whole scene at Estelban's castle, kind of at the end of the first one, reminded me a little bit of that. Because I think there was a Conan story where he's kind of like, you know, being a rogue, stealing stuff from this kind of crazy like gem castle. And then once he gets out, the whole thing vanishes. And it's like, was it even there to begin with? Very spooky, kind of surreal thing. And that whole scene kind of reminded me of that. But otherwise, and then just Corson being a little bit like Conan, but
the second book sometimes is written like it was someone's first draft, like they sat down, wrote a book, got up and went and got dinner, where there's these scenes that just end like bad movie edits, where you're just, one thing is happening and then like complete tonal shift, some other thing is happening and there's no mention or like build up to the end or anything. And the most obnoxious though is characters that just appear and disappear in a scene without introduction or explanation. Newt leaving in the beginning is the biggest one because he's a character that matters. But while they're wandering around the vineyard, other Adenaris people, like there'll be a dialogue tree where Nictasia said this, and then Corson said this, and then Jasper says this. And you're like, where did Jasper come from? And then you like, Jasper's like doesn't say anything else. They don't talk about what he's doing. And that happens all the time through the grape mush of the middle book of there's 120 different Adenaris vineyard people, and they all have different names, and none of them are brought. They're just floating around. Everything that happens will just pop in.
Just walking in and out of the scene like in a bad movie, just like, oh.
You know, I think some of that might be explained by this being a collaboration between two different writers.
That's true. But is it like that in the first book, though?
Less, but I think in the first book, I kept thinking that characters were appearing because they kept using different names for Ben.
Yeah.
Because sometimes they would call him by his last name instead of his first name or his full name. And I was like, wait, is this that other sorcerer? Like, what's going on? Who's here? What's happening? But
yeah, the first book also, there's just kind of a smaller cast of characters in general, I think.
Yeah.
And it's a lot more tightly focused on just Nictasia and Corson, and then like the occasional people that they encounter or are involved with along the way versus like an entire family of great people.
yeah.
That was what I had to say about that. Then throughout the second book, all mine are about the second book, obviously.
Yeah.
Throughout the second book, they'll build up to, oh, this could be a fantastical situation. Is this magic? Is it ghosts? Is there going to be treasure? And every single time it's, oh, no, it's a trapdoor in the ground. Or, oh, it's just some bell ringing. Or, oh, the treasure's books. And I do like that. It sort of grounded it and made it feel more real and then made magic more exciting. But also when just nothing is happening, it's like the book is just beating you over the head with how nothing, like, hey, look, are you going to have fun? It's going to be good. Nope. Taking that away. You're going to continue to suffer through the vineyard grape making part.
Just a little too real. Much like real life.
Yeah. And
I also noticed several Goosebumps-like cliffhangers where the chapter ends with an, oh no, could this be something about to happen? And then the next chapter starts with, nope, it was something else.
Or Nictasia goes to bed and then someone opens the door.
Yeah.
And the next chapter, it's Dacia, you want a bone?
Yeah. Oh my god. There were a few of those.
But because of that, because it was so tedious, just not fantastical things happening, the demon was super exciting, and I was completely riveted by the demon. And I actually really liked the description of the demon and the way they talked about it. I thought it was really cool. But it also did not feel like it fit in this book because it was like a sci-fi demon.
Yeah.
It belonged in 2001: A Space Odyssey, not in a sword and sorcery book.
I think the demon had kind of a similar feeling to the final chapters of the first book also, where it's like, I don't know. I thought it fit okay.
It was maybe just, there was just too much like fact and science in the description of the demon, and it didn't fit with the mystical nature of a lot of the other magic. But maybe that's because you were Nictasia's head instead of Corson's head. When reading, it felt separate from the rest of the story and like it was something else.
Maybe it seemed a lot more out of place after the 150 pages of nothing and like goofing around at the pool and like...
Yeah, that's what I'm saying is they kept on faking you out about magic, and then when it does happen, it's exciting, but also it doesn't quite fit.
Yeah. Maybe it fit more in the context of reading both in a row, though. And I guess it didn't seem too sci-fi because even in Dungeons and Dragons, like you start getting into like the planes. That's kind of what it reminded me of. Like,
but what psycho plays in the planes for D&D?
Well, I was also thinking how like the labyrinth scenes were totally miserable, and labyrinth scenes in a game of Dungeons and Dragons are usually miserable.
Well, so are just riddles.
Yes.
Playing riddles in D&D sucks because your character isn't figuring out a riddle. It's like you, who's probably not as smart as you want the person you're role-playing to be, is trying to figure out this dumb riddle the DM made.
But as a dungeon master, I know that I always come back to this. Wouldn't it be fun to put a labyrinth in there? Wouldn't it be fun to make everybody solve this fun riddle maze?
Oh.
Haven't we both done that?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm excited to get to this description of the demon because I did think that there were some really nice descriptions in this book of like setting and certain features in the landscape and characters. I thought that was done pretty well.
Grapes sounded beautiful.
Yeah, really delicious.
Another additional thought I had is that Corson is way too much of a scaredy cat to be a barbarian. Throughout the book, for comedic effect, you find out Corson is secretly afraid of ghosts, the dark, water. But it just keeps happening. Yeah, heights.
Magic.
Yeah.
It keeps happening, and it's like, you can do this once, maybe twice to build a tough character. You can't do it for everything.
After that, it really started to lose effect, and some of them didn't even make sense. But yeah, I can see like that does work if you already establish this character's nature. She's super tough. She can kill like 100 guys, and then she's afraid of leeches.
Yeah, you pick like one or two, and then it comes up like the Indiana Jones thing.
And, like, magic kind of made sense to have
Barbarians hate magic.
Yeah. To have her playing off of Nictasia also, and to have her be, like, a little bit uneasy about things that don't seem natural. She would have, like, a high wisdom score.
So those scenes always happened in Nictasia's head, and this is a lot of these bargain bin books make this mistake where the perspective shifts.
Yeah.
And it's not very good when it does. Usually it's okay when you're Nictasia. Usually it's okay when you're Corson, but sometimes you're Dacia or just random vineyard person number 7. And it's just, ooh. Especially the sex scene with Nictasia happens half in Dacia's head, and man, that is brutal.
Mm-hmm. Yes. That was a huge problem, actually. And I think even the switches from Corson to Nictasia, like, happen way too abruptly and too often because they should have such a different perspective from each other. The, like, parts from each of their perspectives should be totally different, but...
That's all of my final thoughts for the book. Oh, wait, no. The dream sequences sucked.
You said that.
I said it a lot. They really sucked. That's the end.
I did notice Piers Anthony my least favorite author, who wrote the worst book ever, Mute, had a little review on the back of the first book. And his,
It's fun to see a tall, handsome, hard-fighting, hard-drinking barbarian hero who is female.
Man,
Thanks,
I hate
Piers.
this guy.
Thanks, Piers.
Yeah.
All right. So who do you think this book is for?
I think the book 1 is kind of for me, but also not entirely.
Not entirely.
Why not entirely?
Did book 2 ruin your view of
It's
book 1?
possible, yeah. Book 2 may have ruined my view of book 1. But I'm hoping that things are going to get better.
Well, what made it a book for you? And what made it not a book for you?
As much as Corson and Nictasia's romantic relationship was sometimes random and not really that important to the plot, it is always exciting to see, like, same-sex relationships not being the huge focus of a book.
Yeah, it was cool. It's just not a big deal.
Yeah, and it's kind of like, I think everyone is kind of pretty bisexual in this book. Like, it's not just
Yep.
them. There's, like, a whole scene with Destiver and, like, Stefan's housekeeper that is, like, it's a dream sequence, may or may not be real,
Yep.
but it's, like, it's clear that, like, very few people in this book are, like, explicitly straight, which is cool. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I like it. Personally, I think I also really liked that it was just like reading someone's D&D campaign.
Yeah.
I think that is something I'm interested in doing. Definitely not for everyone, but yeah.
Yeah, I thought it might be for someone who is a fan of role-playing games where you kind of, like, because this would be a good role-playing game. Like, if someone had this adventure, it was a good game.
Book 1.
Well, yeah.
Okay.
I want to harvest grapes for most of my game.
Okay, well, I know that I would since we spend like an hour playing with dogs in our campaign. But whereas like reading Hobgoblin is like if you enjoy role-playing games but you want to read the worst of them. But
Yeah, that's true.
so this would be like a good role-playing game. It would also be good to like harvest ideas for campaigns if you're a dungeon master. Like, not the whole thing, obviously, but pieces of it. And then I was kind of thinking, like, maybe fans of just kind of generally sword and sorcery barbarians, but then more specifically, lady barbarians, and more specifically, queer lady barbarians. Because, I mean, both the heroes just very bisexual, very open about it, and
I thought the whole just free sexual world was pretty cool.
very sex-positive world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, not free sex world, but sex positive world. Two different books. Well,
Who do you think this
yeah, I
book
hope
is for?
this answer isn't insulting to Lindsay, but I thought this book was for children.
That's fine. I'll take that.
I only read the second book, but it seems like the first book too was a little bit, it's a fun romp with silly characters. There's riddles and treasure. There's danger, but not too much danger. A little bit of spookiness, but not too spooky. They get the bad guy in the end. There's maybe a little bit too much sex, but it's not described in too much detail. And I remember a kid's book that were pretty graphic. When I was a kid.
They don't mix like sex with like assault.
Yeah,
which-
they never do.
Like good kind, obviously. Like those are for
Piers
kids.
Anthony.
But yeah. Like
Yeah, all the sex is like consensual and like in a positive light. So it probably wouldn't be a problem for kids to read how much sex there was in this.
yeah.
But maybe parents would feel uncomfortable with how much sex there was. I don't know.
There's like Corson and Stefan's meeting. I'm not sure
Yeah,
how
that's-
consensual that was.
I guess so. I didn't read that one.
Just a flashback though. They're fine now.
But I think this would be a fun book for kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially the second one where there's just adults solving like kid problems.
Yeah.
It's true. Maybe not with the covers that they have.
The covers are the most explicit.
But
Okay. So I think that's it for Silverglass and Silverglass Web of Wind. If you'd like to join us next month, we are reading The Sign of the Mute Medusa by Ian Wallace. That's it. Thanks for joining us, Lindsay.
okay.